Hey guys, it's Paul once again with another VHS review, and this time we are talking about another Mogul Communications release. This time around it is the Hereafter. This is one of the very last of Mogul's releases, released in 1987, and we know it's one of the last because it's catalog number 1042, which is one of the very last ones, and because it's in a slipcase. Towards the end of Mogul's reign, they released a few movies in slipcases. I'm familiar with this one, and another one called Blade Storm, I believe, which is some kind of barbarian type film. But here we have what appears to be a horror film. Now this one is very obscure, and for many years it was not even listed on IMDb. When I first started to catalog this on VHScollector.com, it didn't even have an IMDb page. I just couldn't figure out anything about this movie. It was very intriguing. But recently I did some research and I found out now there is an IMDb page. I guess it was put up, I think, within the last 2 years. And according to IMDb, it was made in 1983. Like I said, this is a very rare, obscure flick. If it was able to slip through the cracks and not end up on IMDb until recently, that's pretty incredible. So let's look at the cover here. It's a weird zombie creature in front of this big house. The artwork actually wraps around, and on the back we have some tombstones, and we have 2 shots from the movie. Now, anyone who's familiar with Mogul know that they just make up artwork that has nothing to do with the movie. In fact, if you read the very bottom fine print of the VHS, it says, "The scenes depicted on this sleeve may be an artist's impressions and may not necessarily represent actual scenes from the film." So even Mogul knew that most of their cover art had absolutely nothing to do with the movie. But these screenshots on the back are actually from the movie. They look very clear and crisp. They're clearly production stills. And that's very interesting that they had actual production stills to put on the back of here. Under those 2 images, the synopsis is very brief. It says, "What unspeakable malevolence pervades this dreadful place? The bone-tingling answer will keep you awake for weeks, if you live that long. The hereafter, where only the dead survive." Now, the synopsis seems to be, like 3 sentences, and it takes the tone of a zombie film. It sounds like we have a zombie film here. It's talking about the undead. In fact, the tagline on the front reads, "The hereafter, where only the dead survive." So, of course, the big question is this a zombie movie? Does it have anything to do with zombies? And the answer is kind of complicated. It's accurate. This creature, which is this rendering of this creature here, is based on this screenshot on the back, even though it seems to be flipped. But that creature, whatever it is in fact in the movie. But is it an actual zombie in the context of the plot? That's the big question. And we are going to find that out. The movie is actually a British movie, and I wouldn't really classify it as a horror film. It's more like a psychological thriller. The movie is about this man who lives in this mansion with his father. His father is a grumpy old man who's confined to a wheelchair. Now his son has to roll him around, and he's just a real nuisance to the son. And the son always picking on him and telling him how he just can't wait for him to be dead. And so they're bickering back and forth throughout the beginning of the movie. We find out that this son actually has a beautiful girlfriend, and the girlfriend makes it very obvious that she just wants to marry the guy for money. The guy, I guess, just kind of goes with the flow. He also wants his father to die so he could have the inheritance. So I guess it works for both of them. He gets a beautiful wife, and she gets the money, but later that kind of backfires on him. So one of these days, he's rolling his father up a hill. They're bickering back and forth, and eventually the son can't take it anymore, puts the brakes on the wheelchair at the top of a hill, and just leaves the father there. The father is kind of terrified. He doesn't know what to do. He goes rolling down the hill really fast and falls off a cliff and dies. Of course, it was just an accident. The son didn't intend for this to happen, but of course, the good side is that the son gets the inheritance. But he finds out something interesting from the lawyer. The lawyer tells him that in the will, in order for him to keep the assets or the estate of the family, he has to live in that house and not be able to sell it. So the 2 who are now living in this huge mansion by themselves have a Western-themed party for the wife's birthday, and the husband has to go down into the wine cellar to get some wine, I suppose. And down there he sees a weird zombie creature in a wheelchair. Immediately, he goes upstairs and has the gardener go down there and tells him he has to clean something up. He doesn't tell him that he just saw a zombie down there because he would sound crazy. But when he does go down there, the gardener, there's of course no zombie. There's no weird creature guy in a wheelchair. So the son is thinking, well, something weird is going on. He doesn't know if he's going crazy or what. Shortly after that, a night where the son is there all alone. The wife is out with some friends, I believe she says, and the gardener is away at a karate competition. At least that's the story they give. He's there at the house all by himself, and once again this zombie confronts him. He starts freaking out, and I believe he falls down a flight of stairs and ends up in the hospital. It's at that point we realize that his wife and the gardener are in a relationship together behind the son's back, and they concocted this scheme to kill the son so they could inherit the money and live happily ever after with the money. It's the oldest story of love triangle ever. While he's living in the house, he starts to suspect that something was up between his wife and the gardener. In fact, he's looking out the window and he sees that they're kind of touchy-feely with each other, and that's when it occurs to him that maybe the two put some sort of plot together to kill him so that they could inherit the estate. So he goes crawling around the house because after this accident, he's now confined to a wheelchair too, just like his father was. It's a weird sort of poetic justice, I suppose. But he's crawling up and down the stairs, and in the closet, he finds the costume, the zombie costume. And he finds a tape recording of a tapping on the wall, which his father used to do before he died. I guess that was supposed to be some kind of ghostly sound that would spook him in the house. So now he knows that there was a plot to kill him. And now he devises a plot to get back at them. And his way to do this is to pit them against each other. Now the wife finds out the costume is gone from the closet. She doesn't think the husband did because the husband can't walk up the stairs to get into the closet. So she suspects the maid. The gardener and her, they end up chasing the maid and they hit her in the head with a pickaxe. Now this is a very weird and interesting scene because I guess they didn't have a real makeup guy on this crew. When they hit the head, this prop head with the axe, it like shatters or something. It's a really terrible effect. Now the next step in this husband's plot to get vengeance is to get two guys who work at the sawmill. There's actually a sawmill on the property. This is where the family has all of its money. They own this very successful sawmill. To beat up the gardener really badly, to put on these masks and just beat the hell out of him. Neville, the husband of the woman, confronts the gardener right after he gets this terrible beating. He tells the gardener, "It wasn't me. I know you think it was me that set this up, but it wasn't me. It was actually my wife. She was using you to kill me, and now she's going to kill you and get you out of the picture. She wants all the money for herself." He believes Neville. He believes this story that now the wife is trying to get him, and now he's finally pit his wife and her lover, the gardener, against each other. So his plan is working. When the wife finds out that her plan is absolutely failing, she becomes a psychopath and tries to kill Neville herself. And they're both at the dining room table talking about what would be the best way for her to kill him. It's a really weird, strange conversation because now everything is out there. There's no secrets. It's known, and she admits it, that she was just trying to kill him for the money. She, while they're talking, had put poison in his drink. But of course the poison was switched out by the gardener. The gardener knew that she had to scheme to poison him, but Neville is now on the good side of the gardener, so the gardener switched the poison with water. So now Neville does not die when he drinks the poison, and she's totally pissed off and goes crazy. She takes it upon herself to take a knife, she stabs him, and now she thinks he's dead. The gardener comes back into the picture, and he says, "What are you doing, you psychopath?" Because Neville was going to give the guy 6 months worth of pay to just leave and never come back again. But now he realizes, well, since Neville's dead, we might as well just inherit the money and live happily ever after. She says, "Help me get rid of the body," Neville's body. He helps put Neville on the boat. They want to dump him into the lake. He can't really row the boat because he broke his arm from that beating he got from those two guys at the sawmill. So she rows out into the lake with this body under her sheet. She's about to dump it over when suddenly this body wakes up, pulls her down into the water with him. The gardener watches this whole thing unfold from a bedroom window in the mansion. Now this was a special bedroom, which they talked about earlier in the film. Allegedly some guy fell from the window while he watched his girlfriend getting raped or something like that. While the gardener is up there watching his new lover being pulled down into the lake, drowning, ghostly spirits of that room push him out the window and he falls to his death. And that's how this movie ends. It's a very interesting psychological thriller, actually. I enjoyed it. There were moments in the beginning where I just wanted to doze off and fall asleep, but right after the fact where he gets put into the wheelchair, and just from his wheelchair he comes up with this scheme to get revenge, it starts to get very good and interesting. So as you can see, the movie is called, obviously, The Hereafter, and it has that zombie creature here. Definitely marketed as a zombie type movie, but as you can see, it's not about zombies. Although this creature is in there, he's not a real zombie. So it's kind of interesting that it's sort of right. It's just that it's grossly exaggerating the zombie aspect of this movie. There is no zombie. In fact, I think The Hereafter is a title that Mogul came up with, because when you watch the movie and you first turned it on, it has a short brief piece of the opening credits, and then it has a new credit for The Hereafter, which looks really cheesy. And then when the final credits roll, right towards the end, another title pops up, which is called Qualen, I believe. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that right. That's actually the alternate title for Spain, I think, or that might actually be the UK title, the original title. I'm not sure. But that's the actual title that was in the beginning of this movie. They just never changed it for the end credits. So now this movie is made by Michael J. Murphy, who had only made a small handful of other UK films. Maybe, I think it was like on IMDb, he's only done like 7 movies. But the same year he did this one, in 1983, he did another movie called The Last Night. And much of this cast is also in that movie. They must have made these back to back, or maybe even at the same time. I thought that was very interesting. But the majority of this cast, nobody super famous or noticeable in this movie. So there it is, guys. Mogul Communications, The Hereafter. One of the final releases from Mogul Communications. Definitely an interesting psychological thriller, at least in my opinion. Not a horror movie, as would be suggested by the cover, but an interesting psychological thriller nonetheless. So, this has been Paul with VHScollector.com. Keep a lookout for my other reviews, and I will see you guys next time.
Stay away from me!